So you're all really welcome to our webinar today. You will hear today about a collaborative family learning project between Kilkenny and Carlow Education and Training Board and the Adult Literacy for Life Programme Office, Cartoon Saloon, the makers of WolfWalkers, and Tusla Education Support Services, TESS, and other agencies. So you'll hear about the project, you get a good overview of what the project was all about. And then you'll also learn, I suppose, tips and suggestions for the potential for collaboration and ideas for your own projects and your own organizations about how to engage adults, children, families in literacy and learning projects. So our speakers today are Helen Walsh, the Regional Adult Literacy Coordinator from Kilkenny and Carlow Education and Training Board, Nickie Egan from the Integrated Services Manager from Kilkenny, Carlow, Cork, Waterford and Kildare, with Tusla Education Support Services. So I am going to hand over to you, Helen and Nickie.
Thanks, Jarv.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to give you the quick overview of the plan for the next 45 minutes or hours. So our plan for today is we'll introduce ourselves properly, and we're going to have a little bit of a rundown on the Adult Literacy for Life, the ALL strategy, which Helen will talk you through. I will give a bit of an overview of Tusla Education Support Services and the 3 strands of it and how we link in with the community. And most importantly, then the homeschool community liaison scheme, which are the teachers in the DESH schools in these areas, and how they work with the family learning and work with the different community agencies. Then we'll chat about the collaboration of the 2, and Helen will do an overview of the one book, one film for all WolfWalkers, the plan, the strategy, and how it worked out last year. And then at the end, you can bombard us with any questions or answers that you might like. So, as I said, my name is Nickie Egan. I'm the Integrated Services Manager with TESS. So the 3 services, as I will tell you a little while later, are the Homeschool Community Liaison Scheme, the School Completion Project, and the Educational Welfare Service. My main remit is I'm the manager and trainer and mentor for the Homeschool Community Liaison coordinators, who are teachers in the DESH schools in the areas who collaborate with the parents of the children and help the parents to enable their child to attend, participate, and be retained in the education sector. And then we have Helen.
Hi folks, how are you doing? So I'm Helen Walsh and I'm the Regional Literacy Coordinator here in Kilkenny, Carlow. So I look after Adult Literacy for Life, but I'm within the Kilkenny Carlow Education and Training Board. So believe it or not, there's one in each ETB, so there's 16 of us around the country, and we may even have some of our colleagues on here today. So I suppose we're going to have a quick look first at the literacy landscape, because we know the audience today is very mixed. So we're wondering what you think the numbers are, and this would be very familiar to some of you, but for others it may not be. So we're wondering, what do you think if you look at the adult population in Ireland, and adults with unmet literacy needs, numeracy needs, or digital needs? So if you'd like to stick in your answers in the chat, we'd like to see. So 1 in how many adults in Ireland do you think would have unmet literacy needs? Don't be shy. And then, is maths or numeracy, is that better or worse? And then the digital skills, would you think that's better or worse? Is anyone brave enough to try? Or you can shout out, whatever. Whoops, am I giving you the answers? I am. Okay, good. So do you think maths is better or worse? Okay, so we'll have a look at the answers here. It's very common. Oops, should be working. Yeah, so here are the answers. So we have a few there with the right answers. So yeah, 18% or 1 in 6 adults would have an unmet literacy need. So reading, writing, speaking, or listening. 1 in 4 adults would have unmet numeracy needs, and almost half the population, 1 in 2, would have an unmet digital need. Now, the only thing, these figures are based on the PIAC report of 2012, so they're a little bit dated, but we're expecting the new PIAC report is going to be launched in early December, so we'll have up-to-date figures, but we have a feeling that the trends are quite similar. So I suppose that's kind of the basis for for what we're doing today and about trying to meet the adults with the unmet literacy needs. So if we had more time, maybe we would have asked you to put this into the chat box as well about what is literacy. So it's reading and writing, listening and speaking, numeracy, and using everyday technology to communicate in your day-to-day life or to handle information. But there's a lot more to it as well. I suppose traditionally we would have said reading and writing. So the technical skills of communication. So it has personal, social and economic dimensions. And that's a lovely quote there from Nala. And we will show you a broader definition then. As I was saying, traditionally we would have said reading and writing. But now when we look at literacy, we're looking at digital literacy and family literacy or environmental literacy. There's a lot of work being done on financial literacy, health literacy, media literacy, and numeracy. So when you look at the adult there at the centre of that, and that's another nice infographic from Nala, when you look at the adult there and how the level of their skills would affect their day-to-day life, their work or their family, their health, and then even the broader community. So just to bear that in mind, when we're looking at this project, and when we look there at family literacy, we would often say that digital and family, it's a great gateway to get adults to engage or to re-engage in adult learning. Are we okay? So as we mentioned there about the family learning, so it is a great gateway, and I suppose back in the 1980s, Denny Taylor first coined the phrase family learning, and it's literacy happening in the home. So any of you that are working in family learning will know that the parents are the first and most natural teachers of their children, and that the home is such a valuable learning place. And lots of times adults wouldn't recognise or value the experience and the knowledge that they have to impart on their children. And there's a quote there to say that adult parental involvement is 8 times more important than any other factor. So when you bear all of these things in mind, you see why we came up with this family learning project. As well, it's a great social network for parents, and it certainly is a great way to get them back in to do further training and to become lifelong learners. So when you look back at the figures there, and the 1 in 6 and the 1 in 4 and the 1 in 2, you might ask what's happening to support adults in Ireland at the moment. So the adult literacy services within each ETB are the statutory providers of literacy training. But there's also a broader support network in community and voluntary groups, and a lot of the agencies on here this morning would fit into these. And then we also have the Adult Literacy for Life strategy. So that's a 10-year strategy. We're launched 3 years ago, but I suppose really we're only into our 2nd year in action, because we have the programme office now and we have the 16 coordinators around the country. So within the strategy, there are 12 different cohorts where adults, potentially vulnerable cohorts with unmet literacy, numeracy or digital needs. So lots of you on the call here this morning are probably working with one or more of these cohorts. And I suppose that's where the homeschool comes in, because potentially they could be working with every cohort there. I want you to keep this in mind for later on when we'll talk about the Collaboration and Innovation Fund. So it's really important to keep the cohort here to the fore when you're looking at that possibly later on. So this is a nice infographic that Nickie might like to talk about.
So
I thought you were gone.
I was muted. The key to successful family learning programs, if you look at it here, that in the middle with family learning, the parents are right there in the middle. And all of us here are somewhere in this graphic. We're somewhere there. And I suppose our core purpose, all of us together, and our commonality is that we want to help the parents as much as we possibly can. The homeschool community liaison scheme, the principal and Tusla education support services do this by collaborating with as many of the other agencies as they possibly can. So they collaborate with the parents, they collaborate with education services, they collaborate with the community in order to help the parents to help their children as much as they can. So I suppose we can go on, maybe, Helen, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just looking at the community one there, they were just examples we used here locally in Kilkenny and Carlow of community groups that we're involved in. And I see the Oral Language Forum is there, and I know we have Dr. Lana McCarthy on this morning. So that was a forum that Lana set up a good number of years ago, probably pre-COVID, I think. Yeah, but there's lots of local connections. So
just a tiny overview of TESS, Tusla Education Support Services. So there are 3 sections to the scheme, like I had said at the start. There's Homeschool Community Liaison, there's the Educational Welfare Service, and there's the School Completion Project. So each of those together collaborate in order to help the target families in our schools. So in those cohorts, the potential cohorts that Helen was talking about a little while ago, those people would be high on a target list for Homeschool Community Liaison Coordinator. They would be working with the families who are most at risk of the children not attaining in education, not attending, and not participating. And in order to help the children, the Homeschool Liaison Coordinator helps the parents. And oftentimes that means that they need to help the parents with their own skills and their own education before the parents have the capacity and the ability and the skills to help their children. So this comes out of our circular. So the primary role of the Homeschool Community Liaison Coordinator is to work with the salient adults in the child's life in order to improve educational outcomes for the child. The focus of the role is to improve the attendance, the participation, and the retention of children in the Irish educational system by providing both universal and targeted supports. So they're available to help as many families in the school as is in their capacity, but their targeted supports are for their cohort of targeted families. And many of those families, if not all of those families, would be from the potential cohorts in the Adult Literacy for Life. So the Homeschool Liaison Community Coordinator is an absolutely perfect person in order for family learning services and for ETBs and for all of you really. They are the perfect person to help you access those difficult to access families. I'll do this really quickly. This is DESH, Delivering Equality of Opportunity in Schools. This is the Department of Education's main policy initiative to tackle educational disadvantage by using education as a means to break down barriers and stem the cycle of intergenerational disadvantage. The Homeschool Community Liaison Scheme is funded through the Department of Education, and then TESS, Tusla Education Support Services, has the mandate and responsibility for the operation of the scheme. So people like myself, I'm actually a primary school principal from a DESH school on the north side of Cork City. So the integrated services managers are seconded into TESS from the Department of Education. And in order to be seconded into my role, you need to have either been a principal in a DESH school with knowledge of the scheme and a homeschool community liaison coordinator, or to have been a homeschool liaison coordinator yourself, so that we are there at the forefront, but knowing what their job is like and will be like over the time in order to help them as best as we can. This, I suppose, is such an important thing. The underlying vision and the thrust of the HSL scheme is preventative. So oftentimes in DESH schools, it's like fighting fires. You're reacting to what's going on. But the HSL scheme is preventative. We're trying to promote and develop partnership between parents, teachers, and communities in order to enhance pupils' outcomes and learning opportunities through improved attendance, participation, and retention in the education system. And in order to enhance pupils' outcomes, like I said a little while ago, we have to start with the parents. So this is now when I'm talking to HSL coordinators about these two little hands out, them in the middle between parents and adult education, those two little hands out are not representative of the role that they actually have, because they actually would need about 10 hands. They need to be well more than an octopus, because it's the different communities that they work with in order to link the parents in with them and help the parents and be a bit like the go-between and a bit, sometimes the translator between both, sometimes the trusted person. So where the parents will talk to the coordinator because they have spent such an amount of time building up trust and building up a relationship and becoming their friend and their ally, that they are then the perfect conduit between the parents and those vulnerable cohorts, and all of the community services, adult education, housing services, further education services, everything that the parent needs to help them in their life in order for them to help their children. The coordinator, the homeschool coordinator, is a perfect conduit for those people to gain access to the parents, because the coordinator has spent such an amount of time building up their trust and their relationship with them. So the coordinators are extremely conscious of the unmet literacy needs, and most especially now in the last couple of years, because we've worked very closely with the regional literacy coalitions all over the country. They have come, people like Helen have come to chat to the clusters of coordinators, and the links and the relationships are there between us and the literacy coordinators as well. So they're becoming more and more aware that many of the people that they're dealing with have unmet literacy needs. And in dealing with them, they need to have an awareness of it, first of all. And they need to have a compassion and an understanding and an acceptance that this is how the person's life may be. And in dealing with that, it needs to be discreet. They need to have that understanding and that discretion when they're dealing with somebody, but they also need to work out ways, if the person has unmet literacy needs, how best can we help them? And a lot of that is through the one-to-one contact with the trusted adult that is the HSEL coordinator, and the personal communication, the face-to-face, the home visits that they make 33% of their time. A lot of the time in their communications with those families now, they use a lot of voice notes and video links and pictorial representations in communications. Oftentimes schools send out letters and emails and text messages, used to, I will hopefully say, without taking into account that 1 in 6, 1 in 4, or 1 in 2 of the people that they're dealing with do not have the capacity to engage with the communication that's coming to them. So now the coordinators and the schools that they are in are much more conscious of it. And they do, as I say, they use voice notes, they use video links that the parents can click on, they use Google Translate, the Say Hi app, which I used to find amazing in my school. We had 55 different ethnicities in my school. So using these apps and the WhatsApp translation and communicating in the parent's home language was invaluable, and it meant that the parent felt seen and felt valued as they are, not us not expecting them to conform to our standards and our way of communicating, but felt seen in the way that they are themselves. And the same with many of our traveller and our Roma parents and our parents who did not complete schooling themselves, for them to think, I'm not less of a person because I can't read this, that they can still communicate with me, I can still be involved in my child's education, is very empowering for them. So, as I said, relationships are at the heart of HSEL work, and the coordinator's critical role involves building, developing and promoting the partnerships between homeschool and the community. So at least 33% of a homeschool coordinator's time is home visits. They visit homes with a purpose. So that purpose is to help in any way that that parent needs help. So they don't go with an agenda of how I'm going to give you the help that I think you need. They go with the purpose of being there to help the parent and to meet the parent where they're at, and together to make a plan. And it's always to improve the educational outcomes of the child by empowering the parent and guardians as their prime educators. So why the parent? Why the salient adult? And like Helen said earlier, because they are the child's primary educator. In that lovely graphic earlier, the parent was right there in the centre, rightfully so. So with the HSEL involvement and building their relationship, they can bring that parent closer to their child's learning. They don't have to feel that they did not finish schooling. They do not have the capacity to help their child, which many of the parents in schools do feel and used to feel, that I'm not able to help my child, somebody else needs to help my child. But the HSEL involvement brings them closer to their child's learning, makes them feel connected to the child's school and their long-term education goals, and provides a positive experience of school for the parent that many of them have not had in their life to date. They improve the communication between the home and school. They provide information on the school and community supports that are available. They provide information on courses and classes that are available in the school, but also in the community, and supports that are in the community, and all of the supports that all of you may have, but you don't know how to access the parent who did it. The homeschool community liaison coordinator is the perfect person to do that for you and to build that relationship between you and the parents as well as themselves. And through all of that, every little bit of that is bit by bit building that parent up, is putting a new brick in the wall of their confidence and their ability to empower parents. So the courses and classes that the homeschool liaison coordinator put on they're aimed at empowering parents. They're to develop the role of the parent as the prime educator, and that's among the key objectives of our scheme. And they provide opportunities to build relationships and provide positive learning experiences for the target parents. Now, these courses and classes are not rocket science. Some of them in my school, we had EAL, English as Additional Language classes for parents from different countries, so that they had the ability, to be honest, to keep up with their child's ability to learn a new language, because I never had a worry with a new child coming into my school, because they pick up language so fast, it's incredible. But the parents were the people we'd worried about, and their loneliness and their ability to communicate with each other and to communicate with the school. We might have had cookery classes, but the cookery class may not actually have been because the parents didn't know how to cook. It was so that they could build relationships, so that they did their literacy work through reading recipes. They did some numeracy work through measuring out in the recipes. They had the ability to have the buffer of a cookery class in order to build their other skills. And even the fact for some of those parents of walking in the gate of the school. One of my traveller parents years ago said to me, I can't come inside the gate because every time I get to the gate, I feel sick in my stomach. So the day that parent came into the school, into a classroom and had a cookery class was just a huge benefit to their life. And then they felt like they had a link to their child's education.
Great. So now you see why we needed to do a project to build relationships between the homeschool and the parents, between the literacy services or the ETB and the parents and the school, and also for us all to link in with a community. So that's how we came up with one book. We called it One Book, One Film for all, but there's often different varieties there. One book, one community, one book, one town, one book, one city. So I'm only wondering, what do you think, or what's your knowledge of, if you want to stick a few words in the chat there, what do you think One Book, One Film is, or One Book, One Community is? Don't be shy. The first time I think I ever came across One Book, One Film, I'm very old, was at an ALA conference many years ago, and they had a film and a book, and I just thought it was a great idea. So was the foundation for it, I suppose. And together with that, I suppose, when Adult Literacy for Life was starting off, that was around the same time that there was a new allocation of homeschool coordinators. So I'm not sure what we had previously, but now we have 22 across Carlow and Kilkenny. Yeah, so family learning tools, yeah. That's great that somebody doesn't know. So
yay.
Read and watch, everyone, yeah. And it was great that you were able to watch it as well as read it. And it was actually on, when we finished last year, it was on RT over Christmas in Irish. So that was another one. Yeah, definitely different groups. And we actually didn't expect to get all the involvement we did. Great, I'm delighted somebody doesn't know. Will we move along?
Yeah.
So Nickie had this one here as well. So
yeah, so the different ways that the One Book, One Community can meet the literacy needs, as Helen was saying, you see, the word book sometimes frightens parents, but there are so many different ways that this scheme can help them, because there's audiobooks. So in my school, for example, we used to do this One Book, One Community in a little small section where we had it with the 5th class children in 2 or 3 primary schools in the area, and the first years in the post-primary schools in the area. So maybe 4 to 6 schools working together, all of them reading the same book at the same time, all of the parents having the same book. So we go to the library and arrange with the library that they'd have the audio books available. And then when we did our little launch, we would link in the parents who had literacy needs with the audio book, so that they could be putting it on in the kitchen and listening to it at the same time as they're cooking the dinner, at the same time as the child is reading it. that immediately gave the parent that bit of empowerment and that link in with their child's learning. And we had different media types in working through a book, and art and poetry and songs, different artistic works and representations of the book. There's cartoons, there's graphic novels, table quizzes, which Helen will talk about. That was with the children. We did it at the end of the time, at parents and children together, the end of our time, and then theatre and cinema viewings as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, as I said, the HSEL involvement in that provides a positive experience at school for the parent that many might not have had in their lives to date, provides information on school and community support, provides information on classes, encourages the parents to take the journey with them, and supports and empowers them. Empowering the parents is the goal the whole time.
And with all that in mind, that's why we wanted to do One Book, One Film. I suppose for all, it has, I suppose, two meanings. It was for everyone. We wanted it to be a whole community event, but also Adult Literacy for Life had just started, and we got some funding from, part funding from that as well. So look, that's the rationale behind it, as we talked about, the family and intergenerational learning. So when we say parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be any adult that's important in the child's life. There was lots of international research, and Anne Hegarty and Maggie Feely had some Irish research. It was all about active inclusion, collaboration, and the learner or the family or the parent at the centre. And we wanted to be impactful and have a good positive experience for everyone, and linking with many partners. So some of the partners that we linked with, first, I suppose we had to come up with a book that worked for both counties. So we came up with WolfWalkers because it was actually one of the homeschool coordinators who said, what about Cartoon Saloon? So we looked at WolfWalkers because that was actually set in Kilkenny within the city walls. And allegedly, the last wolf in Ireland was killed in Carlow. So that was the Carlow connection. So it took a bit of work to get Cartoon Saloon on board. Their books had never been used in this way before. But when we did eventually get them, they really came on board. So our main partners were the homeschool community liaison coordinators, and they were brilliant. And I suppose of our 1,500 packs, 1,200 were distributed via the schools. We had other partners in the special education schools were really good. We had a small number around the county. We had the Kilkenny and Carlow traveller movements were involved. Some of the family resource centres. We had great involvement from the disability sector. 2 or 3 disability groups really worked well on it. The volunteer centre here in Kilkenny did a lovely project, and we'll show you a little video in a minute and you'll see that. And the libraries as well were part of it. I suppose for the graphic novel, WolfWalkers, is a graphic novel, so it's like a cartoon book. So we didn't have an audio for it, but I'll show you in a minute how we overcame that with them. So Derv has a video there. Do I need to stop sharing, Derv, for you to share that?
Yes, if you could.
So it's about a 3-minute video. I hate looking at it. Nickie insisted that we play it.
All right, I'll just make sure I have my
There's somebody there asking about books in the chat. Yep. And even to look at O'Brien Press, they have books and they packs. Like One Book, One Film wasn't a new concept. It had been rolled out in lots of places, but ours was slightly broader when we wanted to include children and adults and the wider community, like the disability sector or the volunteer centre, the family resource centres. We had a few older persons groups as well, because they're great to sign up for everything.
Right, would I start playing?
Yep, perfect.
Great.
So it's about 3 minutes.
So intergenerational and family learning has been the heart of KCETB's provision for the past number of years, and I suppose this project is ambitious in that we were working across both counties and involving so many families, schools, family resource centres and libraries. So we started to work on this project, I suppose, over 1.5 years ago. At the time we were looking at Kilkenny, but then with this new position, now we work across Carlow and Kilkenny.
When they started this initiative, each child received a WolfWalkers pack. So within the WolfWalkers pack, they had the WolfWalkers book.
So initially we started out with around 500 packs, and that's quickly escalated to 1,200 and now we have 1,500 families engaged across both counties.
WolfWalkers, which was created by very talented people from this region. An absolute cracker, and it's Oscar nominated. I mean, how cool.
Encouraging people to read and engage in books and learning is important, but also the fact that it's about local stories, local folklore, and keeping those old stories alive and passing them on so people can retell them to their own kids and stuff. I think that's really important.
We've also included a number of other events. We're going to have a scavenger hunt, we're going to have 2 screenings of the film, we're going to have a quiz at the end, we're going to have a writing project as part of it as well. So there's a lot of activity.
You are listening to a fully loaded special WolfWalkers on the wireless tonight, the live radio table quiz.
So the Adult Literacy for Life is a 10-year cross-government strategy, and the aim is to work with adults who have unmet literacy, numeracy or digital needs across the entire country.
Trying to get families who may have low levels of literacy, families who have very little English or English as an additional language, trying to engage them to not only improve their literacy skills, but they can also aid then in their children's learning as well.
We hope that we'll have a lot more adult learners as we work through the 5 weeks of the project, because it is a family learning project at its heart, and it's about getting adults back into education or engaged in education in a very creative and innovative way. We would invite everyone to, I suppose, look at this as our pilot, to look at this as our first time doing this, and to say, look, we'll try and be bigger and better again next year.
This is a very interesting project. It's easy to be involved in this. This is something that, you know, we can all contribute, whether it's drawing a picture, whether it's writing a poem, whether it's just, you know, talking about the pictures. And I suppose that's what we really would like to see is just engagement and having that positive impact.
Yeah, the feedback is great. We're really getting buy-in. The graphic novel, I suppose, was a big draw. It was a little bit different. People were familiar with cartoon Saloon, but maybe hadn't looked at the book.
This is really at the spear tip of learning. Literacy is really important for all aspects of life. That's why this counts. And it's real social glue. And there was people here who moved to Ireland. So it's a way of bringing them into our culture and our ways. So that's why I'm involved in this, because it matters. And it's good, positive stuff.
Thanks, Jarv. Am I back sharing? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So look, we did 3 or 4 short videos, and that was kind of an overview. You might have seen the guy in the black shirt and the beard. That's Tom Moore. So he was one of the creators and one of the founders of Cartoon Saloon. So you couldn't buy that. We were just lucky to get him. We didn't know until the last minute if he was free or not, but he really, really engaged and he was brilliant. I don't know how far more he travelled, but anyway, it was great. So I saw somebody had a question there about what was in the pack, so we'll come to that in a few minutes. So when you look at the planning, I suppose we looked at it for well over a year. It was in the planning by the time we decided on the book, managed to get some funding. We rolled it out over 5 weeks, so you probably need 5 or 6 weeks blocked to deliver it. We felt that worked well. I mentioned earlier about the vulnerable cohorts, so there is funding under the Collaboration and Innovation Fund through Adult Literacy for Life. So that'll be launched shortly for 2025, so keep an eye on that, or maybe we'll have a mailing list and we can send you details. There may be funding within the ETBs as well under family learning. So check out that, or there might be other community ed, there's different grants, but I suppose the Collaboration Fund is a big one for ourselves. In the planning, you need to get partners on board, and you know yourselves, it's hard to get buy-in from everyone, but once we got people on board, it worked really, really well. We needed a book of interest that was of local interest. It took a bit of time to track down, as I was saying, Cartoon Saloon. Then we planned a calendar. We tried to make it relevant to adults and children and to the broader community. We were looking at how we could incorporate literacy into it. We needed to recruit a team of tutors, so we're going to deliver the different, we called the workshops for the parents, WolfWalker workshops. And then as the project was rolled out, we needed more tutors as well. So they were all adult literacy tutors from the Adult Literacy Service. So this is just a kind of a quick overview of the different activities. And up there in the top left, I said we had a good launch. You really need a good launch. You saw your man there, Neil de Burka. He's absolutely brilliant. I think he's delivering at the NALA Family Learning Conference later on in the month. He was brilliant. So we actually had 3 launches, but everyone thought they were at the launch. So we had primary school children in one, secondary school and the other with some of the special ed schools. And then we did an adult group for adult literacy learners and ESOL groups. As I was saying, the workshops for the parents, so they were held in the school every week, or family resource centre, or the library, or the ETB. They worked on different things, and Nickie was saying there about audiobooks. So we didn't have an audiobook because it was graphic novel, but what we did, the tutors created a kind of a synopsis of the story, just an A4 page of the overview of the story, who the main characters were, and then we also recorded that on audio, so they had that as well. The scavenger hunt was really, really good, and that was, I suppose, we didn't expect it to get as much interaction. We got hundreds of replies back. Just be careful who the answers are coming back to, because I ended up getting them all. I had hundreds of photographs. The art and storytelling, we call that Shkelela. So people were able to do art or write a story either at home or in the class. So that opened it up to everyone. So if some children didn't get the support at home, at least they were able to do it in the class. We displayed those in 2 centres, in the Delta Centre in Carlow and here in Roath House in Kilkenny. So there were nice cultural venues, and we had a deal with both centres that people could call in to see the work free of charge over the 4 or 5 days that they were on display. So that worked really well because it was a new experience for them. We did a nice one online with the animators, and that was it was 120 euros or something. Evening time, it was an hour, and it was really interesting for the older students and parents and teachers, because they showed us how they created the wolf vision. It was really, really good. And they talked about careers as well in animation. There was lots to do outside of the classroom. We've city walls here in Kilkenny. They're after being renovated, and Tower, so that was a free place to visit. The site where the last wolf was killed in Carlow, and since they put up a nice statue thing up there. Going to the theatre was a big thing, and you might have seen a group of ladies there in the visual in Carlow, and they'd never been to the cinema before, never in their life. The quiz, WolfWalkers on the Wireless, again, that title was one of the homeschool coordinators came up with that. So it was on the local radio, it was evening time. We had 11 venues around the country, around both counties. It was in schools and centres. You could do it at home as well, but you weren't involved in the prize game, you did it at home. The workshop ideas, I suppose there was a huge amount of happening. Every group did a synopsis of the book, so they either read it or listened to it. They kind of went through the packs with the parents to show them what the children would be doing over the few weeks. They did a lot of work on language and idioms and even sayings about wolves, like keeping the wolf from the door and all of that, what it means. They looked at wolves past and present. I think there was even a campaign at one stage to bring wolves back to Ireland. There was a lot of art and craft, as you saw in the video. There was a story set created. There was a hug your book done on it as well, based on Lan McCarthy's idea. So that's just a very quick overview. What I didn't put there, our final night was the quiz on the radio. So it started with the hotel launch with Neil de Burka and finished with Wales. But about a month afterwards, we did another event then in St. Canice's Cathedral there, where we presented the prizes for the WolfWalker quiz. So what do you need? You need a good author or an illustrator if you can get your hands on them to call in, even to do a video call or something. So we had a book. You might have seen the boxes there. They were like pizza boxes, but they were branded. WolfWalkers, or Cartoon Saloon, gave us permission to use all the images. We did a flyer, and Derv has this here as an attachment. She'll send it on to you later. It was an A3 folded into a 60L, and it worked really well when we were trying to promote it. We had an overview of all the different events that were happening over the 5 weeks. We had activities printed, and we had a digital version. And she's also going to set Derv will also send scavenger hunt and the Shkelela. We had local publications, like the County Council had something here on the city wall, so they were put into the packs as well. The organisers, you'd need your set of quiz questions, double check them and triple check them, because it's really hard, maybe some answer sheets. You need your packs of resources, craft materials if you're going to do the story sack, and templates if you're going to use the hug your book. You need lots of help. There was a lot of photocopying, a lot of packing. when you're taking back in entries or to run the quiz, you need lots of help. You can't have enough help to do it. One of our tutors set up a Padlet, so she stored everything on it. So you can see there she had the calendar, she had the story, the history. I'll show you a link in a minute with other activities. And then there was here, look, the history of wolves in Ireland. That was kind of the literacy end of it. A little bit there on the Hugger book, story sacks and storyboards as well. So also as your attachment, you'll have those three. But if you are using the WolfWalkers, the Butler Gallery here in Kilkenny have a huge amount of resources on their educational section. And also the Ark and Temple Bar did an exhibition, I think in the summertime before we did it, and they have a huge amount of stuff. There's gorgeous drawing exercise and craft exercises and lots of different things as well. So I think that is it. Right on time, are we?
Yes, this is perfect time. Thank you so much, Helen and Nickie.
I'll stop sharing.
That was very inspiring, and we definitely do have a few questions. Let me see if I can scroll back.
Nickie will be delighted to answer all questions.
So I think you covered pretty well what was in the pack there, so that's great, and who received it. So someone has asked, are there similar projects like this in Dublin? If you'd know from your colleagues, Helen, maybe, or Nickie, in that area?
No, but you could take this, like, those resources are there, like all the Butler Gallery stuff and the Ark stuff is free. We don't mind sharing what we have either. So, like, the stuff is there, the template is there. God, use it. We love it. We want
in the
everyone
deaf
to use it.
schools in Dublin, we have been working in the deaf schools with one book, one community, as it was at the start in many schools. Some areas did have it, some didn't. But we as a team, there's say 6 of me in the country, and we divide the country between us. We as a team since September have been pushing the coordinators to get involved in this and to make the links in the community. So if you're in a community area that has a deaf school that has a homeschool liaison coordinator, then they're a great point of contact for you as well. And if you're not sure who that person is, you could always, I mean, Derv, you're very welcome. I put in the chat a while ago to share my email address, and I can link them in with the integrated services manager for whatever area you're in.
Brilliant.
And they're a great link for you for the coordinators.
And the same with the regional literacy coordinators. We have a link for that as well, Derv.
Brilliant. Yeah, and all of this information will be forwarded to everyone, not just who attended, but registered. So I know some people's colleagues might be missing today or whatever. Another question here was, it's similar about, are all the ETBs, involved? And I suppose similar to what you guys were saying, like there would be other projects going on. It won't be exactly this project yet. So that's the motivation to go and reach out and make those connections and make it happen.
All the ETBs are very different. In some, I see somebody was questioning there for Limerick and Clare, brilliant for family learning. Like there were the forerunners in it, really. Mary Flanagan, just brilliant. So there'd be probably other similar projects. What we couldn't find was a template to work with adults and children. We had lots. There's one in Dublin every year. Dublin libraries do it, and it's for adults. And if you look at the O'Brien Press one, they have lots there for children. But we wanted to get the adults, so we were just using the children and using the homeschools to get to the children, to get to the parents. And I suppose we were delighted, like a lot of parents stayed on to do other family learning projects as well.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that from the coordinators involved, they have spoken about that. And even in my own school, in my own area in Cork, over the years of doing a much smaller version of one book on community, you find that the adults involved then are suddenly more open. The fear gap is lessened. They're suddenly more open to other avenues of family learning once they've been involved in one little story I had told before was of a Roma. We found it very hard to get the Roma parents to come into the school, but in one of our one book on communities, ironically, it wasn't WolfWalkers, but it was another wolf story about 4 years ago. The art, we did parent and child art in the school, and the mum came in for the art with the child. The child was a bit of a buffer. The art was a buffer. And that then broke down that wall that she had in her head about entering a school, and she got involved in other things. So it can be a great access point for parents.
And like we were saying earlier, the family learning, it's a great gateway. and you get them in, then the tutor's chatting, you know, there's English classes happening, or there's a computer class, or they're doing another lovely project. So it is a great gateway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely struck me there, I think, Nickie, when you were speaking about the parent who, you know, wouldn't go past the school gates. And I think we cannot underestimate, you know, those of you that have worked with parents who feel that way, you'll know this, but some of us haven't. And I think you cannot underestimate how unwelcome people feel because of very, you know, long experiences for long ago. And that can be in the school setting, that could be in the library, that could be in the museum, like you mentioned, Helen, or the theatre, the cinema. It is not an everyday experience for many people to go there, and they don't feel safe or comfortable. So it is an extraordinary, I suppose, impact for a person to actually feel I could do this next week with my child. Without that support, I think I could go and I'm welcome. You know, it's really powerful.
And as well, depending on their family situation, like not all women would have free reign to go or attend things. So when it's something for the child or something in the school, it makes it much easier.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's sometimes I see this in the family resource centres, some of the other community and voluntary organisations, people underestimate how powerful their work is because unfortunately it's not always valued and funded very well. But like those relationships you have with parents and families and that trust, it is so unique, like you were both saying, to be those bridges. You know, whether it's homeschool liaisons, or you can connect people in ways and they trust you, so they will take a chance, they'll take a risk, you know. And
even going back to the infographic there that Nickie had about the andragogy and pedagogy, like working with adults is so different to working with children. And like that's why the adult literacy tutors, they're trained, that's their job to do it. So I suppose that helped as well, and it worked really well. And it certainly built great relationships, I suppose, with the ETB and with the schools, and then with us and the wider community.
Absolutely. And another thing you both mentioned there as well, but Nickie, I know when you were mentioning the cookery classes, that integrating literacy piece, and it's the same with the whole project, the one book, one film, but it's not about hiding it, but it's about delivering in it in a way that's not scary. And, you know, if people are learning, whether it's going to, you know, an art workshop with their child, building their confidence to even be in a group of other people learning at the same time, or, you know, getting confident with numbers through cookery, whatever, it is so important. And sometimes those non-formal learning places, like people can think, oh, it's a bit of this and that, and it's like, no, a lot of work goes into that, and it's really structured actually, and very planned and very strategic.
Like you could use any book, and like you all have local books, maybe have local interest, that it might mean you'd be able to go on a trip. Maybe like we went to the city walls, it was only down the road from the centre, or out to Fenna to see where the last wolf was allegedly killed. So there's loads of other extension activities, I suppose, from it. So have a look locally, and you might have a good chance then of getting an author to pop in, or an illustrator, or somebody like that. And that just makes everyone feel more important when they have the famous person. And Neil de Burke was brilliant that morning when he introduced Tom Moore. He said, there's a man here in this room, and he just went to school like you, and like you, and like you. And then he was really good at drawing, and like he was just brilliant. So I know one of the homeschools, Tommy, he spoke there as well, and he said when the children went back to school, like they were all so excited and delighted that they were going to be, they had all sorts of dreams what they were going to be.
It's brilliant. That's
Can
it.
Sorry, can I come in?
Please,
Sorry.
please do.
Hi.
Hi,
Can I
Alana.
say something?
Dr. McCarthy.
Stop that, you. Hello, everybody. I just want to say just how amazing the project is. I think it's really, really good. And what I really like about the project is that it was such a community-based collaboration across all of the different projects, and the way you were able to integrate, as Deborah was saying there, all of the different projects for parents as well. Obviously, I love family literacy, so I love anything like that. And I was loving the idea that you were using Hug Your Book, you were using the recipes, you were using all different methods to engage with the parents. Absolutely, really enjoyed it. So I want to say congratulations, and I think it should be across the country. It definitely should. It's amazing. So thanks a million, and sorry for jumping in.
Thanks, Lana. Lana's the creator of Hug Your Book, folks. So maybe that's something we need to follow up with telling you all about. It's really brilliant.
It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now,
fantastic.
We'll have you on next.
There's another webinar.
And I think that is it just for today and other times. I know people are busy, so I really appreciate everyone, both the speakers and the attendees, because I think it is these points that you get a spark and you get connection and like, God, some of this is ready and I can run with it, you know, where I work. So, you know, we will send out all the materials, all the links, everything mentioned, the Hug Your Book, all of these things will be sent out to everyone afterwards.
And I suppose the other thing there, just keep an eye on the Adult Literacy for Life website,
Yes.
and the call for funding will be coming up.
We'll stick that in.
So like it's collaboration and innovation. So you have to collaborate. So that's really good. So collaborate with your home schools or with your literacy service or family learning service, or even with community groups. Like it might be a venue that and they might decide then they do it for free or something for you. And just keep an eye on the vulnerable cohort, that little one as well. So that's where funding would, and there's a big push, I think for 2025 for family learning. So this is your chance.
And we'll send all the names and contact information for the regional adult literacy coordinator. So if you haven't made contact, we really recommend you do that. Definitely.
Oh, thanks, Linda.
Hey, Linda's our favorite.
How many
Linda
sessions did you
in the
attend?
feedback form. But thank you so much, everyone. If are there any other last questions?
I see somebody there asking about being an adult literacy tutor.
Oh
God, where do we start? Maybe link in with the RLC or with Lana's there with SETU as well, or I'd say the SETU, the Southeast Technical University, have the Literacy Development Centre where you can do courses to train up as an adult literacy tutor. Sometimes some of the Education and Training Board, the Literacy Service, does have opportunities for people to volunteer, and they do training there. There's not as many these days, but we will send out information to the different places where you might check in about that, Anna. Yeah, and your regional literacy coordinator, like they may not know the answer, but they'll refer you on to whoever
the contacts.
And just get the conversation going.
Great. I'm just going to plug 2 events that Nala have coming up.
Can I just say one more thing, Derek, about the book?
For it, Helen.
When you're going for a book, like have a bit of fun or a bit of boldness in it, that people and children get more fun out of it. Like the 2 girls in WolfWalkers were really cheeky. Well, the country one was really cheeky and she became the other one towny, and children got great fun out of that. So just bear that in mind. Don't have it too serious.